The unseen uniform of Havenwood. The bus ride into Havenwood was a pilgrimage of silence, the kind that filled the air like a physical presence. It was the silence of a town that spoke only to itself. Adrian Sterling stepped off the bus. The cracked pavement, a new kind of ground beneath his worn boots. He carried no luggage, no visible ties to the place. Only a folded newspaper and a stillness in his eyes that spoke of battles fought on foreign soil and in the heart of his own country. For a black man walking into a town of 8,000, his very presence was a declaration. Havenwood was a place where names stretched across mailboxes for generations, where the borders were drawn by old cotton fields and deep pine forests tighter than any law. Outsiders, especially those with darker skin, were not just noticed, they were scrutinized. Adrian felt it instantly as he walked down Main Street. Curtains twitched. Conversations stuttered. Eyes lingered with a calculated curiosity. He did not flinch. His destination was a modest diner on the corner of Maple and Cedar, its neon sign, a faint, buzzing promise, declaring itself the Golden Spoon. For 30 years, it had been the town's beating heart. Farmers argued about rain. Retirees traded memories, and truckers swapped tales of roads that led anywhere but here. Adrian pushed open the door, the bell above him chiming a mechanical, almost surprised greeting. The room stilled. It wasn't hostile, but it held the small-town curiosity that could curdle into suspicion at a moment's notice. He chose a corner booth, placing his newspaper on the table with deliberate care. A cup of black coffee soon followed. No cream, no sugar. Adrian nodded his thanks to Leah Thorne, the owner, a woman who knew every regular's life story by their order. She studied him for a heartbeat longer than usual. Something in his composure, an unspoken authority, seemed at odds with his quiet routine. For 3 weeks, Adrian returned at the same hour, 7:15 sharp. The locals took notice. He spoke rarely, tipped generously, and never lingered. He was a ghost, some said, a gentleman, others whispered. Leah only felt a strange sense of reassurance in his presence, though she couldn't explain why. But peace in Haven would never last long. One Monday morning, the door swung open, and Officer Ben Carter entered with a heavy gait, a man who believed the world belonged to him. 15 years on the Havenwood Police Department had given him a swagger that fed on fear and submission. His pale blue eyes swept the room, narrowing when they landed on Adrian. Carter's hand rested on his belt, not in readiness, but in a silent, arrogant display. "ID," he said flatly, approaching the booth. It wasn't a question. Adrian looked up slowly, his dark eyes meeting Carter's without the slightest flicker of deference. "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem I can assist you with?" The words, calm and steady, were a quiet challenge. Carter had expected compliance, or, failing that, a resistance he could crush. Instead, he met something unfamiliar, dignity. "I asked for identification. Soldier boy." The phrase dripped with mockery. Adrian folded his newspaper, his movements measured with the precision of a man who had lived by discipline. From his jacket, he withdrew a leather wallet, sliding his license across the table. Carter picked it up, his gaze raking over the details. "Savannah dress," he muttered. "That's a long way from Havenwood." "I'm exactly where I need to be," Adrian replied, his tone not defensive, not pleading, just factual. The officer's jaw tightened. The script was failing. The outsider wasn't playing the part written for him. "What brings someone like you here?" Carter asked, the pause before the last word hanging heavy for every ear in the diner. Adrian tucked his license away, his expression unchanged. "Coffee and a newspaper. Same as anyone else." Leah set down her coffee pot with deliberate force between them. "Officer Carter," she said evenly, "Mr. Sterling has been a regular here for weeks. He's never caused a moment of trouble." The warning was clear. She would not let her diner become Carter's stage. But Carter had already lost face. And when small men lose face, they often bare their teeth. "Maybe you should finish that coffee and move along," Carter said, his voice now loud, feeding on the silence of his audience. Adrian rose slowly, laying a $10 bill on the table. He straightened to his full height, his presence filling the room with a quiet, undeniable power. "I've learned something in my years of service," he said, his voice carrying like a sermon. "Small men often wear the largest uniforms." The words cut sharper than any blade. Carter's face flushed crimson, but Adrian didn't wait for a reply. He picked up his newspaper, nodded once to Leah, and walked toward the door. The bell chimed as he left, leaving behind a silence so heavy it seemed to nail Carter to the floor. That evening, Leah found herself unable to shake the moment. Curiosity, or perhaps an uneasy premonition, drove her to her laptop. A search for Adrian Sterling revealed what the town could not have guessed. Colonel Adrian Sterling, commander of the 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart, Georgia, a decorated veteran, a man with authority over thousands, whose respect carried more weight than Carter's entire badge. Adrian, however, was not dwelling on the encounter. By nightfall, reports were filed, first with the military police, then with the FBI Civil Rights Division. Carter had drawn a line, and Adrian intended to document every inch of it. The next morning, 7:15 sharp, Adrian was back at his booth, calm, watchful, his coffee steaming. Officer Carter was watching, too. "You can't record me without my permission," Carter blustered, stepping into the diner. "Actually, officer, this is a one-party consent state," Adrian replied calmly. He then withdrew a simple, elegant business card and placed it on the table. "Colonel Adrian Sterling, commanding officer, 3rd Infantry Division." The revelation hit the diner like a thunderclap. Carter's face went ashen. He had been harassing a federal officer. Adrian's voice, still recording, continued. "I've been carefully documenting our interactions, the traffic stops, the questioning, the public accusations. I think there's been a fundamental confusion about my presence here. Let me clarify. I am here because I choose to be here, and I will continue to be here for as long as I choose." In the weeks that followed, the federal investigation moved swiftly. It uncovered not just a single officer's prejudice, but a systemic culture of corruption. Carter's harassment of Adrian triggered an audit of the police department's evidence room. What they found turned a civil rights case into a criminal one. Carter had been systematically stealing money and drugs for 2 years to pay off gambling debts to an organized crime syndicate. 3 weeks after the final confrontation, a team of federal agents entered the Golden Spoon. One of them, Agent Sarah Mitchell, approached Adrian's booth. "Colonel Sterling," she said, using his full title, "we need to discuss Officer Carter." Adrian lowered his newspaper. "What have you found?" Mitchell leaned in, her voice low. "The civil rights investigation led us to the evidence room. Officer Carter was stealing money and drugs. He's looking at over 25 years in federal prison." Adrian nodded, his face impassive. Justice had been served. Mitchell continued, explaining that 3 other officers were involved and the entire department was being placed under federal supervision. The mayor wanted to offer a formal apology. Adrian folded his newspaper and stood, leaving his customary generous tip. "That's not necessary. I was simply exercising my rights as a citizen." Camola, August 24th, 2025, 7:09. "Your exercise of those rights may have saved this town from financial ruin," Mitchell replied. Adrian smiled, the first genuine warmth Leah had seen. "Same time tomorrow, Leah?" "Wouldn't miss it, Colonel," she said, a new respect in her voice. "Just Adrian," he corrected her. "I'm just a customer here, like anyone else." As he left, a new police cruiser pulled up. A young woman stepped out, her uniform crisp. She was Chief Jennifer Washington, brought in from Savannah to rebuild the department. She walked directly to Adrian's table and extended her hand. "Colonel Sterling, I'm Chief Washington. I wanted to thank you personally. Things are going to be very different here now." Adrian shook her hand. "I'm certain they will be, Chief. Welcome to Havenwood." 6 months later, the town had been transformed. Carter was in prison. Chief Washington had implemented new policing standards. Adrian was still a regular at the diner, often joined by young officers who saw him as a mentor. The military and civilian worlds had forged a new partnership. The Golden Spoon had become a symbol of redemption. Military families now visited for breakfast, drawn by the welcoming atmosphere. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of a community that had learned a profound lesson. Courage and dignity, when faced with prejudice, can bring about a quiet justice more powerful than any weapon. The story that began with conflict had ended with honor and healing, proving that sometimes the quietest men hold the greatest power.